Good evening. We are coming to you from the Egyptian Church of Christ Incorporated. This program is for one group of people and one group only, the children of God. You no longer have to wander off the straight path. For those who want to make a difference, for those that want to know the truth to so many unanswered questions, and for those who are tired of the devil taking control over everything in their lives and the lives of their children. This program is set up for those who want to bring God's kingdom to earth. According to the scriptures, Matthew 6:33, but seek ye first the kingdom of God, and his righteousness should be added to you. Therefore, we must take back control of our lives. We, as the Egyptian Church of Christ Incorporated, are reaching out to embrace all the children of God. As it states in Psalms 82:6, I have said, ye are gods, and all of ye are the children of the Most High. Next, you will be listening to our pastor, Reverend Dr. Malachi in question and answer form.
Of bits and pieces? Is it a physical action that someone removes bits and pieces from one of the other six and then gives it to who? In this, referring to the same question, please.
Rahobat. I know what you're trying to say. When she says it was them, the average person in here doesn't have 7 clones. But let's say the 5 men that control the Bilderberger Society. Bilderberger Society of 5 men who rule the world, or Ram Corporation. Each one of them have a clone. And each one of them had that clone produce copies of themselves for body parts. And they have special doctors that are responsible for keeping them together. Let's say he has face cancer. If you notice, at one point, his whole face was swelling up and eating away. If anybody knows something about terminal cancer, they would not be able to just pull it away and patch them up like that. It doesn't work like that. Once it starts to eat the cells away, that's it. You have a very limited amount of time when it becomes that apparent. Now if you look at him, all of a sudden, this whole big mass is gone. Or had this big growth on his nose of cancer. Then all of a sudden, you know, he disappears for a little while, goes away, goes on the tour, comes back through, and it's not there. He no longer has a nose problem. So they have ways now. What they're doing is they have cell tips they work with. And they're having a problem with making it public in America because they have to go into the fetus and take cells in the fetus that can rebuild cells. What I'm saying now sounds crazy, but if you go in the computer, you can investigate it. Cell tips, they call them. And it rebuilds cells. So if you have, let's say, MS or some kind of brain damage, now they have the means by which they can take out of a baby's fetus cells, inject them into your brain cells, it'll cling on and begin to reproduce fresh blood cells, actually regrow cells. But the conflict is every time they do that, they have to eliminate a baby. They have to kill a baby. So now they're trying to take control of Africa and other countries where they don't mind eliminating babies in order to sustain their life. It's ugly, it's a sad truth, but it's the truth. So it's like, say the Anunnaki and beings of that caliber had clones. The ancient Egyptians had clones. The so-called pharaohs have had clones made of themselves, so that in the event that during their life they suffered from some type of terminal disease, the alchemists could immediately replace that with no fear of rejection, because they replace it in, they only know 6 to 8 weeks determines whether or not your blood is going to reject it. There was no fear of that. And that's what it means when they say they're talking about those physicians. And in the let's say in the time of Zulza, the physicians would be under Ayamhotep. That was his high priest. And beneath in the time of Tutankhamun, he would be I. The high priest would be I. He had a bunch of men under him, which were called the royal guard of Amun-Ra. and they were high priests. You sometimes see them depicted in artwork with an ihram on, a simple white robe, bald head, no hair. They shave all of their body. Anything that was bacteria attractive, they didn't have. They were pure white robes all the time. They always show them in any book you read on Egyptian. They show you these men, and they call them wabs, or priests in ancient Egypt. Well, these men knew the sciences. They were like scientists. They knew about the embalming. They knew about cloning. They knew about alchemy, altering molecules. They just were learning. They got their knowledge from beings who came from beyond the stars here, which sounds crazy in America until when we speak of beings coming from beyond the stars, it sounds like it's crazy until you talk to a Christian in America and you say, where did Jesus come from? And they go, huh? You say, well, where did Jesus come from? According to your Bible, Jesus said, I am from above, you are from beneath. Jesus said, I come down from the Father. As long as you're talking UFOs and you keep it in that terminology of UFOs, it sounds crazy. But when you turn around and just say, let's get for real, where did Jesus come from? They'll say, before he came to earth, he had to have been someplace. If you say he came, they'll say, well, Jesus came from heaven. The next question is, where is heaven? The definition of heaven, of course, to them is up there. Up there, where? Up there somewhere. Okay, good. Being you don't know exactly where he came, but you do know he came from up there, then you are admitting that he came to this earth from some other place where he lived. Did he have a seat beside his Father there? They'll say, well, according to the Bible, of course, Jesus sat on the right side of his Father while up there. So there's seats there. Was there angels there, the heavenly hosts? According to the Bible, there were heavenly hosts there. And these heavenly hosts, were they nude or did they wear robes? Because when Jesus appears in visions or when the Blessed Mother Mary appears in visions, they always are garbed in white robes, etc. So they have robes there. Yes, when you read the holy books, it speaks about paradise and the fruits of paradise and the pure water of paradise and the gifts that we're going to get when we get to heaven, which are very similar to the things we already have here on earth, but they're supposed to be tarnishless. But slowly but surely, we're being confronted with a reality that there's a place somewhere there where they go, a specific place. And in that place, there's seats and people talk. Because in fact, in Genesis chapter 3, God is walking in the garden talking. Well, either God was talking to himself when Adam and Eve heard them, but it says they heard God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. So he was actually moving about. So what was he doing? Talking to somebody, a group of people, because they heard him. Because you wouldn't hear him if there was no concrete and he didn't have no clicks on his shoes. You wouldn't hear him. They were walking around in sandals on sand. You won't hear nobody walking on sand in the cool of the day. So they must have been having a conversation. Who was God talking to? Other beings that are on his equal or beneath him or above him. They have to be in one of those places. They have to be either higher than him, equal to him, or beneath him. But whatever it is, there's other people there. And if there's a seat on the right side, the only reason why you would mention having a seat on the right side is because there must be a seat on the left side. So if Jesus is sitting on the right side because he's good, then on the left side sits Satan. But Satan can't be there no more because Revelation 12 says Satan was thrown out of heaven and can't come back no more. So there's an empty seat on the left side. But as you add these ridiculous little things together, they sound like mumbo jumbo. They come down to a reality that there is a place where Jesus came from. And there's a place that Jesus wants us to go to. And he says, where I am, you may be also. But the point is, if he says that where I am, you may be also, if we go and look at that literally, he's saying, I am somewhere and you're over there. And I want you here. And to find out where that, we simply go to the Lord's Prayer. Where is that here? Well, Jesus said, I want you to pray like this. Our Father, who art in heaven. So now he's separating himself from earth beings and saying there is a heaven and our Father is there. We have to do that. If we take it from the religious and just blindly go by faith and say, well, I'm not going to address these final points, then we're not worthy to be there. Simply because it says you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. So we're supposed to know these things. Otherwise, God would have never put them in the Bible. If he didn't want us to find them, he never gave us the intelligence to find them. He wouldn't give the heathen the intelligence to rage because God controls all the intellect in the boundless universe. So if someone speaks against God, God allowed him to do it for a specific reason. He wants that question raised. He wants that doubting Thomas to exist. Because by doubting Thomas, he can confirm the truth. If there's no doubting Thomas, how do I get to the truth if I don't have somebody saying, well, I know God personally? And then there's some guy in the congregation says, you don't know God. God arranged both of those situations. The kook who says, I know God personally, and the guy that says, you don't know God. He says, yes, I know God. Well, where's God? Oh, God's in heaven. He talks to my heart. Okay, now the situation changed. God talks to your heart. God talks to everybody. I thought you meant that you knew him personally, like I know this guy, and he talks to me like me and him sitting in the bar having a beer. That's a big difference. It's left like that. So when he's making reference to they, he's speaking of a place where beings are. And those beings walk and talk with God. And they're called the heavenly hosts. In fact, one man in the Bible called Enoch was so good that God didn't even let him die. It says in the Bible, God translated him and took him to himself. And took him to himself. And Enoch didn't even die a mortal death. So now, Enoch in the Bible didn't die a mortal death, then he was still in a physical form. And if God took him and translated him out of this planet somewhere, he went there in what? A physical form. If Elijah in the Bible, teacher of Elias, took a chariot to the heavens, physically, they saw him go up into the sky physically, then what? There must be some place up there where people meet physically. And if Jesus ascended before the disciples physically, and they watched him, as they say in the Bible, go through the clouds. Correct? That's what it says in the Bible. You can change the Bible to make it suit your religious belief. But if you want to stay literal, it says Jesus went up through the clouds and his disciples watched him disappear into the clouds. He was in physical form. This was not from the cross, what they call it, when he saw the spirits of Elijah and he saw the spirits of Moses, and he had that transfiguration, as they call it. To transform one figure to another. And they said he was illuminated, but he was still physical. Because in order for you to be illuminated, you must have some physical. You can't light a light bulb without a filament. You need that filament inside there to get the light. Now when the light comes out the bulb, it appears to be something intangible. But if you trace the light back, it cuts back to that bulb, cuts back to that filament, cuts back to those wires, cuts into that force, cuts into that electricity, which is physical. So there are beings there. We have got to come into that reality that there are beings with God. Whether we want to call them angels or by whatever term that makes us feel good, if you want to call them extraterrestrials, if you like the color green and you call them little green men, that's your prerogative. That's your individual choice, as long as you do acknowledge that there are beings with God. Now in Africa, they may choose to acknowledge all of these beings and give them all separate names. And then we as Christians may look at them and say, that's paganism. And then they'll say, well, what about the saints? Or we'll say, well, that's different. We'll say, what's the difference? You got God the Father. We say, that's right, Heavenly Father. And Jesus, the Son of God, we say, that's right. And the Blessed Mother Mary, they go, that's right. We say, and the Holy Ghost, we go, that's right. And they say, well, that's four. We say, no, that's one. That's 3 in 1, that's Trinity. They'll say, no, you may say it's 3 in 1 because that's what you want to be, but when we, in Africa, break our gods all up into a whole bunch of gods, and then we say, all of them are one. So if you go talk to an ancient Egyptian, he will say, all the gods come into one God, Atum. Right? And you say, well, there's Amun-Ra, and there's Beth, and they'll say, yeah, but all of them are qualities of the one God. If you talk to a Muslim, he'll say, Allah is one. He said, well, he has 99 names. He said, yeah, well, all of these are attributes or qualities of this one God. You see where the trick is coming in? Once we get into the reality that we are at the third level of manifestation, that there's a higher level of beings, and then between us and those higher level of beings, there's angelic beings, and then it comes down to us who are physical and angelic beings. So when beings came into this world, they had to be assured that their mission would be completed. So they had people that said, we're going to keep his body intact while he does this mission. So they made duplicates of him. And it sounds crazy today, but if I told you about a television on your wrist 10 years ago, you would have laughed. If I would have told you you was putting frozen food inside of a little box with electricity and pushing buttons, and in 3 minutes you have a meal, if I would have told you that 45 years ago, you would have thought I was crazy. If I would tell you there was going to be cloning people, you would have thought that was insane. All those things that appeared to be insane yesterday are realities now. Bringing people back to life. You know, people who died in the hospital, the doctors come in, there's no blood circulation, there's no pulse, the person is legally dead, the doctors walk out the room, pull the sheet over the patient's face. You know what I mean? They're making a death report, come back in, the person is sitting up. And they say, I had a near-death experience. The doctor say, near my butt, you were dead. But how do they present that to the medical society when there is no rules in the books for people who die and come back? Simply because this society haven't got that far as to mesh medical and religion. Because they won't marry the two, they don't leave room for those things, so they'll say, well, maybe they were dead. The person said, well, let me tell you something. I was floating around the room and tell people what they saw them doing during the period that they were laying there supposedly dead. And they gotta say, well, we can't explain that right now, but we're sure in time we'll have an explanation. Well, of course. In time they had television. I was living when there was no televisions. There was no thing about human beings walking around on a screen. My mother's sitting right here. She was living when Jesus was living. It's always good to have a parent around because it makes you feel young. Even if you're old. Some of us folk in here were living when things didn't exist that you take for granted. Like the children today, the reason why the children are crazy, because they have what's referred to as an instant replay life. You know what that means? Years ago, if we wanted to watch Joe Louis and them box, we all stooped down in front of a radio and everybody listening while a man narrated. We didn't see them on television, let alone miss them and program a machine that catches the fight while I'm out somewhere else and I come back in and go pip and watch a fight. Was that possible when you was a kid? No way. You want to know what's wrong with the children today? The children today have this concept that life can be stored and picked up later. So when you're talking to them, say, listen, you got to get your life together now. They're going, He said, whatever you're going to do with your life now, you better start doing now. He said, listen, nigga, I'm talking straight up, nigga. You better start studying right now. I'm talking that bullshit. So you got to get a couple of dollars to go to the party? Tomorrow's Monday, nigga, you got to go to school. See, they know that they can get videotapes or what they call it when kids can't read this thing now? Hooked on phonics. The only hook on phonics we got was our grandparents hooking us upside the damn head if we didn't study. Wasn't about going out to the movies on Saturday until your room was clean. These kids got everything on instant replay. And until we destroy that system, we'll never be able to change the children. So I'm saying the things that appear to be abnormal today are going to be every day. I mean, talking to dead people is going to be as simple as knowing your relative's telephone number to the other side. You say, well, Uncle so-and-so died 3-4 months ago, and he was a hell of a carpenter, and I'm trying to build this project, and I don't know what to do. And you say, well, his father said, well, my brother, oh, shoot, his number is, let's be good, 777-777. He got on the phone and said, 777, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. How you feel? How do I feel? I'm dead. How am I supposed to feel? How you feel? You the one with all the aches and pains. That might be a sense of humor from the other side. It ain't funny to us sitting here with a toothache. You with me? How do you know that that's not going to be as normal as turning on a TV? How do we know that? Because a stealth plane, a hover jet, on television last week they were showing a plane that goes up like this, boom, and takes off, right? Before, all we know was thrust. Thrust was it like, figure out a way to throw the plane, but now it goes up in the air and goes, boom. The United States is saying, dang, if we'd have had these back in the First World War, we could have did to their butts. And System in Time says, but you didn't. But don't doubt the possibility of talking to spirits on the telephone. Don't doubt anything when you live in this day and time and you see the technology that exists today. You understand? I was just driving along with a young fella and he got this detector for radar. I don't have one in my car, I didn't think about it. I was like, what's that thing? It's going to So what's that? He said, you see the box over there? I said, yeah, one box says somebody else got one. So somebody got one what? He said, yeah. He's telling you that somebody's coming with one? I said, yeah. Then went another direction. I said, what's that? He said, someone's activating a microwave oven. I'm like, We sitting in a vehicle driving along 127, and somebody's cooking their food in their house, and we're seeing it in the car. You mean tell me them frequencies are in the air like that? Because of microwaves? Oh yeah, just saying if it fills up, that means the police is near. The whole screen fills up, that means the police is near, so I can watch the police. I can see it, all I know. I didn't know this, I'm talking, this is today. All you guys look like, you didn't know? No, I didn't know that. Like, I could be, all this time I've been getting chased by these cops, I could have one of them and do never had. Y'all young folks take for granted sometimes we old folks miss stuff. Because we don't even know, unless you come in and tell your pops, yo pops, guess what's new? You're from, I'm sitting in my room watching the black and white television. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Let alone 3D TV. Things they got out now with 3 dimensions. They got movies on the internet where you don't even have to go to the cinema any longer. Don't doubt anything, because that's a tactic of the devil to make you unprepared for God's power. By making you think that it must be within the power of man to be real. And that God's power surpasses man. God can make things happen and does, because there'd be no inventions or no creations or nothing if God didn't put the thought in the minds of people. Einstein was dumb as heck. You know why I say that? Because as smart as he appeared to be, he smoked. But when he was smoking, they hadn't got to the point yet where they realized how much cancer damage he was doing to himself. But every time they show you Einstein is supposed to be such a genius, he's got a pipe in his mouth. You know what I'm saying? This guy invented the atomic bomb, altering molecules, and he didn't figure out that he was killing himself with cancer. See, they plan a plan, and God plans a plan, and God's the best to plan this. Because of how intelligent he appeared to be, he was stupid when it comes down to something that simple. That we, or they, sister that you was asking about, is pertaining to beings that protect it. Today they got them too, but we don't have them. We don't have that privilege or that luxury. I mean, you get hit by a truck out there, that's it for our butts. But those rich folks up there, they got body parts. They got to force themselves to die. Some people just live on, they got some people like Bob Hope. Bob Hope is older than Santa Claus. I hate to talk about our own late President Carter, but Carter's jumping out of planes at 80. Anybody who jumps out of a plane knows your body is not equipped to jump out of no plane at 80. You can't even jump off the toilet at 80. So he must have conditioning.
What I was going to ask is, do these bodies that they've got, are they in stasis or are they living and then they just pick them up off the street or something?
I like to say they bring them over the street. That sounds like a movie. I like to work with that. No, once they clone these bodies and they speed up their cell growth, they put them in suspended animation. They have what's called cryogenics. Right? Now, the thing wrong with cryogenics is the brain cannot be reactivated. It turns to mush once it's frozen. But they've proven that most other organs in the body can be revitalized. But the brain, once you lose that brain contact, which is that oversoul he's talking about, so they're not concerned. So if a president has brain damage like Kennedy, when they shot him, he still lived on NASA's island for a long time, but he was in a wheelchair, he was brain dead. So they really couldn't bring him back to the forefront of politics, so he just lived his life out there in Greece, and Jacqueline pretended she married Onassis, and that's how the story went. But didn't stop because now everybody's eyes like, what the heck? I just realized what I'm saying is new to some people just by the look on your face. I know y'all didn't think Kennedy died, did y'all? Okay, you did. All right, what else? Anybody got a question? Yes.
Robert, is there a cure for sickle cell?
Yes, there's a cure for everything, including death. And you may not believe it, because I'm hoping you young people hear me. There's a cure for everything. The thing is, how long do you want to live? Right now you think you want to live forever, right? Right? But if you was Bob Hope's age, would you want to still live forever? Let's look at it this way. Now that they're on the borderline of communicating with the dead, and now has been confirmed by certain scientists that there is some form of life after death, correct? Now they have all these psychics out there that are proving beyond a shadow of doubt that they have the ability to communicate with the dead, or that's what it appears to be. Ask yourself, what happens once you know for a fact that when you die, relatives who passed away to bring you over? Think about it. How many times has any and every one of us decided, I'm fed up with this life, I don't want to live no more? Don't lie, because everybody pretend you ain't got a little insanity is crazy. Almost everybody out here at one time or another got fed up with life and said, I just had it. You follow? But you was too punky to commit suicide. You thought jumping in front of a train was going to hurt. So you're still here giving us a hard time. But suppose you knew, beyond a shadow of doubt, suppose you knew that once you passed, that your relatives, your greats are waiting for you, and they got a hand stretch, and they take you into a new world. Suppose they did this by communicating with you before you passed. You follow what I'm saying? What would happen? For one, when an officer says, pull over. Think about it. Pull over. You say, get out of the car. Excuse my English, but I'm telling you what you say. No, I'm not getting out of the car. I'll shoot you. Woo. You know, big deal. What about that time when all the bills, you know that time, right? And even those bills that we thought we were getting away with because they didn't give us the bill. So we was running that telephone up and it didn't never come and we like, they forgot about me. And then just when we on Dubad Street on the corner of Ain't Got Nothing, in comes this bill for $300 to $400 you going for the telephone company. Oh, this is a back bill for so and so. You're like, and then you get frustrated, you say, dang, I'm going to get something, go to the refrigerator, open the refrigerator, take a beer, and chill, open the refrigerator, and moths fly out. I ain't got no money to buy no food. So I'm going to go over my girlfriend's house. I call my girlfriend, and the guy picks up some butter. You follow what I'm saying? I'll just get down, go downstairs and go for a drive just to chill. Go downstairs, it says empty. I said, hell, I'm just going to have to get some money for some, get some money for some. I don't want to live no more. Don't say you haven't been to that road before where you don't want to live no more. But if you had a confirmation that everything is going to be all right, this world would be a different place. The way people get in arguments, there would be no such thing as road rage. There'll be road incidents. That's all. Get out the car, put down. You got me, I got you, thank you, Bloom. And we're near that now. We're near that state of mind right now. We're starting to accept, just by the technology, you know what I'm saying, communication. Oh, they already passed life on other planets. But what were they saying 20 years ago if I said there was life on Mars? You're crazy. Now they found life on Mars. Life on Jupiter. Not life on one planet, but life on more than one planet in our solar system. They found tri-star constellations, systems with 3 suns. It's on the internet. Go look it up. Things that they say is impossible have become possible. So life after death, which has always been based on faith and belief, is no longer simply faith and belief. It's now possible and bending towards probable. And to some, confirmed. You with me? How will that affect us as human beings? So, to answer your question, they have gotten to the point where they realize now we as a people are developing spiritually to the point where we know there's a life after death. That we know that there is really a Jesus Christ. That we know there was really angelic beings. Whatever name you use and whatever language you speak, whatever country you're influenced by is not what's important. The reality is important. We know it's real now. And our attitude towards life is changing. Our attitude towards working is changing. Our attitude towards people are changing. You follow that? And we're in that day and time now where anything is possible. Tomorrow we can flick on the television and they tell us something we never even imagined before. You know what I'm saying? So we're at that period of time where life and death are becoming one. And the system is afraid to face the reality of in what direction our minds will start to elevate to. Will we become gods? And does that change the definition of God when we become gods? You follow? When we reach to that level of God, the perfection in God, being his children, does God then raise to a higher level? And does that start another journey? Or does that end it? Or is that the beginning, and was this a path towards a beginning? All of these questions become something to talk about. Years ago, it was simply, is there life after death? Is there heaven or hell? Does God really exist? Is God dead? Was Jesus a real person? Etc., etc., etc. And I explained to y'all, I explained to y'all before, you have two Jesuses in the Bible. I don't mean two Jesuses. We know there's three characters. I'm talking two births of two Jesuses and two Marys in the Bible. You know? People don't want to hear that. No, no, no. My Mary is my Mary. I said, well, which one? The one that had a child in a manger, or the one that had a child under a date palm tree in the desert? What are you talking about? That sounds crazy. Well, in Matthew's and them, they speak of the birth of a child in a manger, in the presence of wise men. In the book of Revelation, they speak of a child born under a date palm tree in the wilderness with dragons waiting to kill it. Which is true? Or they're both true. They'll say, well, that's the mystery of God. I don't want the mystery of God. God said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make me free. I don't want the mystery. I want the fact. If you can't give me the fact, step down off the pulpit and let somebody who God inspires stand up there. Let somebody who has the answers get up there and get down. Stop the preaching and start the teaching. Stop trying to be a good person and just be a good teacher. And let people become good people themselves. Because what you are, you are. What you're going to be, you're going to be. Whatever is grown in you, it's like the tree. Whatever that thing is going to fertilize this ground enough, something's going to grow through here. Whatever it's going to be, it's going to be. I may not see it through, but the sand, but something's going to grow there. Every person here is a God in the making. And for no other reason than God said, I put my spirit inside you. God's spirit would be no more than a seed, because it wouldn't be God. I put my spirit in man, and man became what? But what's the catchword in between that? Man what? Became. He grew into. He changed into. He metamorphosized to become. I put my spirit into man, and man became a living soul. See, but we got God's time and our time mixed up. We're taking became like past tense. We're still becoming. Because we're not a living soul yet, are we? What are we? We are a living body. Are we not? Now check back, some of you younger folk. Your grandparents, your grandfather. I used to put my grandfather's jacket on and I was buried in it. He wore like a 48. Grandma had hips. Half these women here like little string beans. Half of the men here, we ain't got shoulder span no more. We were about anywhere from a 40 to a 42. And that's man size. There's a man boy section for man size. Women are buying their clothes at the children's sections. Are we metamorphosizing? Are we becoming smaller as human beings? Yes. Just check some history. Check out what size shoe your grandfather wore. 15s. Average man now is wearing a 10. 9.5, 11 the most. Old folks wore 15s. Crawls on up. Are we changing? Yes. What are we becoming? We're becoming less physical and more mental. You talk about little midgets and little grades. We're almost there. Kids born out like these big old heads. Ain't too many little kids whose head match their shoulders. They're toting these big old tank heads. Something is changing. Kids' eyes are bright, born. When I was a child, kids wasn't born with hair. Kids wasn't born with nails. They had to wait 2 to 3 weeks before they got nails. Remember that? Now kids come out full nails, some with teeth. Is this not a fact? I mean, we learned to grunt, you know what I mean? Pull, crawl on one leg, then crawl on two, then move around with stuff, and then get up and stagger and fall. Children now come out and do this. twist. They're walking. What does that mean? That means God's plan is still at work. We're behind time. Misinterpretation. People not looking at the Word of God. And that's why I said in the beginning was the pay attention to the words of God, not the sentences of God. You can't even get past God's words, and here you are trying to interpret his sentences. Let's do it word by word. God breathed the breath of life. Got that? Into man. And man became a living soul. If we're now still a living body, we don't become a living soul until the body is dead. That's the path we're on. That's the journey we're taking, to become a living soul, a conscious soul. And that's the reward. The reward is to pass out of this physical body and yet still be conscious. There are lost souls. There are people that die, as they say, and have no spiritual connection. They're gone. Some people don't dream. Some people don't dream. Some people don't dream in color. This is real. They don't have no spiritual connection. And when they pass, that's it. This is as far as they're going. Because they'll never make it to the state of a living soul. Man became a living soul. You may say, well, became is past tense. Past tense in our time or God's time. Because it says in the Bible, what? One day to God is like 1,000 years. So his idea of past tense and our idea of past tense, there's a great difference. What is the journey then? What is the path we're on? To become a living soul. And what happens when we become conscious of that? We become in tune with that reality that we're becoming a living soul. And we accept that reality. Then what? Then we're God. We talked about that. It's in The Wizard of Oz. The journey led to a little person behind a mask pretending to be God. Do you realize that's why they're mad at you and I? You know, that's why they're mad at Nuwapians, Nuwabs, or whatever they call us when they can't pronounce it. You know why? Because they say, he says he's God. And they don't realize they're quoting something in the Bible. When the priest said to Jesus, we're going to stone you because you say you are God. And Jesus said, isn't that written in the law? I said, ye are gods. They still tried to stone him. They don't like us because of our consciousness, our connection with God. The reality we're starting to say, we are the children of God. The Bible says God has children. And the sons of God saw the daughters of man. So, if there's sons of gods on earth, and there's daughters of men on earth, who are the daughters of man? And what is their destiny? Because the sons of God's destiny is to return to the bosom of God, to be with, as, and of God, to be one with God. That's our path. So there's some other people walking around the planet. Whose children are they? Children of the devil. That's Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. It says, I put iniquity between your seed and her seed. And we're her seed. We're even Adam's seed. So the devil has people are walking next to you. Talking with you. Eating at the table with you. Working with you. Flying next to you on the plane. Sitting next to you in the car. You don't even know this fool got marijuana. He didn't tell you that when he got in the car. He knew it because he purchased it. He knew it was illegal when he got in the car with you. But he didn't have the time to tell you, I've got this marijuana with me and it's illegal. Because he knew doggone way you said, we will get rid of my car. Then the police pull you over and the police said, let me see driver's license. To the police and this fool yells out, why you pull us over? This fool got the marijuana. You don't even know why. He said, nigga, shut up. Guys, get out of the car. They searched him, and next thing you know, you're in jail. The only way he said, man, he just messing with us. Man, this is racism. Man, this is harassment. Man, this is a... Nigga, that was the devil sitting next to you. Now, you're looking for the devil to be white. That would make you feel so comfortable, so convenient to say, oh, all white people are the devil and all black people are gods. Crap. If you believe that white people came from black people, then you believe the devil was black before he got white. If you teach that black people existed on the planet first, and archaeologists, paleontologists, and everybody agrees with that, right? Then if the white man is bad, he came out of you, then bad came out of you. So now who be the father of the devil? Who that is? Talk real. Who it is? Came out you then, right? You want to face that reality? Can you tell the truth about yourself? Or can you only tell the truth when it's others? When the black Muslim want to stand up and say, all white people are the devil, and all black people are angels. Crap! I got some uncles, I know the devil. I probably got uncles saying about me, I know that nigga devil. You understand? The end will reveal that. But it's inside. The devil's walking with you every day. I'm trying to give you a message. Y'all who are aspiring here to become one with and as and of God, be on your guard against the nearest person to you. Smiling faces tell lies. Or what? The backstabbers. Watch out for that best friend. You understand? Anybody who wants to be your best friend has a purpose. Friends are not something you pick up along the way. Friendship comes from trust. How many people had people they thought were their friends and stabbed them in the back? I should say how many people didn't, because I know 99% of us did. And I trusted that person, and I would do anything for that person, and they stabbed me right in my back. But you know what they tell you about a snake? Huh? You knew he was a snake when you picked him up. See, most of the time that friend was the friend who had the connections, or the fancy car, or knew where all the pretty girls hung out, knew how to get into parties. That friend had all the connections, and that's why you cling to that friend. But that friend had the delicacies of the harlot surrounding him, or her. That friend had money all the time. I like hanging out with him or her. They knew all the sharp places to go and the best restaurants. You hear me? And when I approached it that way, I put down my God. G-O-D. I put down my God. I became off God. And that's why I got stabbed in the back. And that's why I got betrayed. And that's why I got hurt. But if I stay on that one path of reality and face reality that tomorrow anything can be said. And he might open up tomorrow and say,